Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. Great to be with you on Friday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and you. We're going to dive in and get ready for the open practice tomorrow. And some guys we're interested in seeing. It is not June yet, but man, oh man, Nebraska's lining up some visits here for June once the recruiting dead period expires. A couple of names to tell you about on that. We'll spend some time with Derek Peterson, Dr. Petey from HailVarsity.com and magazine. The Varsity Club podcast is his. It's a must-listen to. We'll check in, and we'll also get into some Air Jordan discussion with Petey because he's kind of a connoisseur of the Air Jordan brand and going to get his top 5 on things. I bring this up because Junior and my brother have a kind of a shoe show coming up. There's going to be a showcase going on, I think, out on West O here towards the end of the month. And my brother has gone hog wild on acquiring gear to turn and sell. So I want some of Dr. Petey's takes. If he was buying, what are the 5 Air Jordans he'd go after?
Well, and I know it's like the process of getting all these like rare shoes, quote unquote, is just ridiculous.
My
now
kid's online. We had to scream at him last night, FaceTime him, why are you still up? It's gone from being on the video game setup or system, because he's still grounded, to being on his phone waiting for these Yeezys or these special edition Jordans to drop so we can get in and try and buy them, get a hold of them.
Oh, yeah, because they go quick. There's like 500 pairs, and you got to have the sneakers app. And
you do, and then you try and turn and flip them, and you make some money.
Now, what'd you think of the Lil Nas X shoes?
Give me a little. Those? No, I have not. Please.
Let's see. The whole theme of them was Satan.
Okay.
There was a drop of human blood in each of the soles of the shoe.
No.
There was like some awful Bible verse about like Satan on there, and they only made 666 pairs of them.
Yes, of course. Sign of the beast. Why not?
Yeah. So conservative America was absolutely flipping out about that.
Well, I have just heard of it, and I'm appalled. And I don't get appalled by much, but there's a drop of human blood. My God.
Yeah. At first glance, you look at the shoe and go, "That's a pretty good looking shoe." Until you see
who made them? Nike, Adidas.
I believe Nike. Yeah,
really?
Yeah, and then that's like a pretty good looking shoe until I see like the pentagram on there, and I go like, "I'm staying the hell away from this."
I don't want the goat head. Not in. No, nope. Thank you. So okay, I don't know that that'll be part of my brother and Junior's collection acquisition. So, no, we'll dive into that. Bill Doleman's with us in an hour, and then Rick Pizzo going to be with us, get his take on some Husker baseball, and we'll also hear from Will Bolt. And Pizzo's got a busy weekend of first-round talks. Pizzo's spending a lot of time with a number of Big Ten kids that are going to go in that first round. We're looking at 6 to 8 Big Ten kids that'll go. A couple of Northwestern guys, likely first-round picks. Where's Justin Fields land? Micah Parsons. And, you know, I think of Micah Parsons, and I think of the Friday Night Light camp he was at where he's running go routes as a linebacker that could line up on the outside and beat most cornerbacks because he runs a 4.4. So I look at that, and I look at some of the rosters that Nebraska's been able to put together, and they're always in the mode of acquiring talent, and you got to get that talent here to visit. They're going to have some kids that'll be here for the open practice, but they're also going to have some kids here for the spring game, and that is so key to get them a seat front and center on their own dime, obviously, because the dead period's not expired, but just the relationship. And I give Nebraska credit, man. I give them credit for just how dogged they are with, and you got to be, I get it, but some staffs kind of wait for you to come to them in some instances. In Nebraska, as you look at the 2022 cycle and 2023 class, I mean, they are in it already. And I want to start out with a couple of guys that are going to be June visitors. June 4th is the date circled for running back Justin Williams. He is out of Georgia, Dallas, Georgia, to be exact. And then a guy that just today also is going to be finding his way to Lincoln is Chase Androff. He's a tight end out of Lakeville, Minnesota. And I was watching a little film here on Justin Williams, and I look at Williams and a guy that is coming off a monster junior season. He's 6 foot, about 200 pounds, just shy of 1,500 yards, almost 300 receiving yards, 19 touchdowns. And he's a 4-star back. He's a 4-star talent. Coach Becton is alive and well in Georgia. I mean, Nebraska's done well getting some Georgia kids here. And you look at case in point, Gabe Irvin's a guy we're going to be watching tomorrow. What's he look like during open practice? But with Williams, he's been in constant contact with Nebraska. Nebraska offered him in October, regular contact. And it's been Scott Frost and Ryan Held and Barrett Ruud leading the way. And when it comes to Williams, and a good story here from Parker Gabriel on it, Williams is like, yeah, I know Nebraska used to be a powerhouse, and it's a good school to go to if you want to be a running back that has a chance to get to the next level. I mean, Mills, obviously a Georgia kid. Gabe Irvin's from Buford, Georgia. Ronald Tompkins from Loganville. There's so much talent in Georgia. So you have an official visit scheduled for Louisville for Williams, also West Virginia and South Florida. It sounds like West Virginia's kind of in the lead, but we'll see if Nebraska can make an impact, make an impression. So the kid can absolutely get through the hole. I mean, these are highlights. These are huddle highlights. So there's 70, 80-yard touchdown runs that are just, he's untouched. If he's wearing a flag, he's untouched. There's no yards after contact because there was no contact. And I was like, who does Williams remind me of? A running style. I'm like, well, the way he's able to get lateral and then upfield, and I know he's a little bit taller than Amir, but he kind of reminds me of Amir with his, just the way he carries his body, and then also the way he kind of grips the football cross body, going through traffic, spinning through problems. Dare I go Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, those are the two names that kind of jumped to my mind, and I think his mother was a world-class sprinter, so he has that in his back pocket if you need it.
And I like that Zeke comparison. He obviously completely unrefined.
Am I off, or does it kind of?
It's the same thing as Zeke at Ohio State, where he didn't really make any astounding moves, but he knew where the hole would be. He hit the hole hard, and then he had the vision through the second level.
He glided away from problems,
yes.
And he was so good about. It wasn't a one-on-one stutter step go. It was, I'm getting the hole, the defense overruns it, or I'm able to cut off of a shoulder and go diagonal. And I think of the highlight runs in that shootout win Ohio State had back in 2014 against Alabama.
That's exactly what I'm thinking of.
Think of the big bursts that Zeke had in that game. I mean, obviously 12 gauge went deep a lot, and Ohio State won in a high-scoring affair, but it was the run game for Ohio State and Ezekiel Elliott in 2014 that was money. And I don't want to call Justin Williams the next Zeke Elliott. That isn't fair. But that's who he reminds me of. Got a little bit of Amir and a little bit of Zeke in him, and that's where I'm at. I love how he gets through the hole, and then he accelerates, and then he's able. You nailed it. His vision is what's pretty big wow factor for me.
Yeah, it all just always seems like he's taken, like it's like the center fielder in baseball, like they do the check the stats to see like how efficient their path was to the area where the fly ball lands, and that's what I see with this kid. It's just like it always seems like whenever he breaks one in the open field, he's always picking that most efficient route to get past the defender and get to the end zone, really, because half of these total highlights are ending up in the end zone.
Couple of kids from Kansas to keep an eye on out of Out of Hayes, Kansas, Jaron Kanek and Gavin Myers. Kanek's a guy that kind of does it all. 3-star prospect. He's a guy that's running back, linebacker, quarterback for kind of a Tebow-type run play setup. Myers is also a kid that plays inside linebacker, and Nebraska able to get in early on those guys. Kansas State is there to challenge. Iowa State on the radar as well. And, they like Nebraska both because of kind of the blue-collar mentality, which is nice to hear. Other defensive names to keep in mind here for June visits for the camp circuit. You got defensive lineman Nico Davalier. He's out of Arkansas, 6'3", 275. Georgia, Arkansas, Tennessee on him. You can go by stars if you like, and that is accurate in some instances. The thing I like, though, is who's the peer recruiters. If I look at the SEC going after a kid, that means he's pretty high-level talent. Defensive lineman Jaylen Marshall, he's out of Overland Park, Kansas City region. Oklahoma State's got a family tie with him, but Nebraska's there. James Mons, of course, Wonder Mons is his uncle. He's a quarterback prospect Nebraska's going to get on campus, and they're kind of fighting with Louisville, Purdue, and Cincinnati for him. And then you have Grant Page out of Boulder. He's a 6'2" wideout. And you've got Popeye, the outside linebacker that's pretty high level. Popeye Williams, Nebraska in on him. But the other all-name team is safety Mumu bin Wahad. He's out of Loganville, Georgia. He's going to visit Nebraska June 25th. He's looking at West Virginia and Georgia Tech. Mumu and Popeye would be part of the all-name list here for Nebraska. But in all seriousness here, I've been pretty wowed here by what I've seen from Williams. I know you need linemen. I know you need pass rushers. I know you need secondary people, but I like what I've seen from Williams so far.
And my recruiting pitch to that kid is you have picked the perfect time to graduate. It is name, image, and likeness season. You already have the perfect name. I already have a company in mind, which would be perfect for you, Popeye Williams. Like, we're Nebraska. We can help you get there. That's my recruiting pitch. There
you go. Elijah Herbel from downtown Bang. Numbers to get in today, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Email Chris@HaleVarsity.com. And also find us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio. Chris Schmidt at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbel. MJ Morris, of course, going to be visiting the spring game. He's the top quarterback target for Nebraska for 2022. And I saw this earlier in the week and watched some of his film. And he's more of a pro style than a dual threat. How does the name and film of Reese Mooney grab you? He's a kid out of Louisiana. Daddy's a big Nebraska fan. He's a recruit that just decommitted from Houston baseball, and he's a guy that can play middle infield and wants to do that, it sounds like, per Greg Smith. But, man, he's a 2023 quarterback, but he has really got a nice arm, and even though he's pro-style, he's able to kind of move around and roll around in the pocket. And I think Mooney's a guy that Nebraska is in on early. He's been in a lot of contact with Scott Frost, and Miami likes him. I think he'll take a visit to Miami, Cincinnati, Colorado, USC. The list is long for this quarterback who's in Illinois. The pig farmers all over him. And then your second favorite team, Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss, have been there quite a bit on his doorstep. Michigan State, Georgia, Florida State as well. So this kid's got just a slew of offers. But so he's really high on Miami, Nebraska, and kind of medium on Ole Miss right now. So,
but when I'm like here, I got his highlights pulled up in front of me. And he's not the most beat you with your legs guy, but he's got that same trait that the other baseball players that play quarterback have. Like, you think of Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson.
Just get out of trouble.
Justin Fields. And they have that ability to throw on the run, getting out of trouble, throwing off platform. I mean, he said he's a middle infielder. That Mahomes played shortstop. Pretty sure Kyler Murray played shortstop. Russell Wilson was also a middle infielder and outfielder.
Kyler Murray would have gone number 9 overall, or was drafted number 9 overall to Oakland, for the love of God. But first pick overall in the NFL, 9th pick overall in the Major League Baseball draft.
Yeah, but this Mooney kid's got the same traits that those guys have. Obviously, I don't want to talk him up too much because he is just a high school quarterback, but he's got that ability and flashes to throw off platform and get himself out of some trouble. So I just instantly love the idea of a baseball player coming and playing quarterback because it seems to be working in the NFL.
Right on. And that mobility is so key. We'll dive into some players to watch for Saturday when it comes to the open practice. Is it like Long John weather tomorrow? Am I going to have to bundle up, like winter coat, stocking hat?
I'm going to be umpiring tomorrow, and I'm going to be probably wearing some.
Yeah, but you're going to have like
Johns.
80 pounds of gear on you, won't you?
Most likely.
Where are you umping at?
That's a very good question.
You're like, haven't gotten that far into my weekend yet.
Well, I'm just with the rain in the forecast. I'm hoping it's a field turf field, or it's a field that drains well, so I can actually get out there and go umpire.
No,
it's supposed to be raining all night.
Yeah, that'd be good. You're gonna get the old text that says games have been pushed back. We shall see.
And that'd be the worst case scenario because I got to watch Jake Paul fight Ben Askren tomorrow night.
Yeah, you're into that MMA stuff, dude.
Yeah, but this is boxing. It's gonna be a little different. So it's Jake Paul, the YouTuber, against Ben Askren, the professional fighter. I wonder who's gonna win.
That'll be all right. Boxing's kind of my thing. We'll hear from Derek Peterson, Dr. Petey from Hail Varsity next. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you on a Friday, Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Schmidt and Elijah Herbel. We welcome in the good doctor, Derek Peterson, with us, HailVarsity.com and magazine, and Dr. Petey, HV on Twitter. So, Derek, Elijah just scared the heck out of me, telling me about these shoes that got dropped by Nike. We'll get into football in 2 seconds that actually have human blood. Explain these, Elijah.
It's the Lil Nas X shoe. It was something to do with his music video, which dropped a couple weeks ago, and it was like in the Satan was prominently featured in that music video.
Which is not good. We're anti-Satan on the show. Just so we're all clear. But Petey, you do an awesome job. Every time I see you got a pair of kicks on that are pretty awesome, man.
Thank you. It's a collection we're trying to build.
Okay, so where are we at in the collection?
It's still small.
It's growing.
I've got a pretty good collection, I think, building. We're adding some pieces. There's some stuff that like I have, the Spider-Man ones that came out in 2018 with the release of the Into the Spider-Verse movie. Those are ones that are on my wish list that I'm saving for because I got to pay stupid resale for those.
Yeah.
The Rookie of the Year ones are definitely on my list that I'm saving for. I've got a pair of the UNC ones that dropped last month.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a pair of 3s that my wife bought me for our wedding anniversary that were part of the Justin Timberlake Man of the Woods promotional tour. Those are a cherished item, and I got the Jubilee 25th anniversary 11s that dropped last December. So we've got some. There are some good pieces in the closet. When Alex found out the total value of the shoes in that closet,
mm-hmm.
she was a little surprised. But we're growing.
Do you just kind of look at them, or do you'll wear the Jordans? You wore the Carolina ones the other day to practice.
Oh yeah.
Are you hoping to flip them ever and make some money, or are you just like, no, I love them, then I'm gonna wear them?
No, yeah, I want them to wear them, and like. There's they've turned into like a commodity for some people.
Like my brother, yeah.
Which I don't really get that. I don't really understand that. It also makes it tougher for somebody like myself who just wants them to wear them, just because, you know, I'm a fashion dork, and I'm with Aaron Sorensen, and that we both like shoes. Mm-hmm. And so I want them to wear them. And so if I can get them at retail, then I'll put in a lot of work to try to make sure that I can get them at retail, even though the drops suck and Nike hates retail. Yeah. And if I can't get them at retail, then I can't afford them, and I got to move on to the next one.
Now, Derek, one of my roommates, I was out playing basketball with him, and one of the other guys in the court was like, "Are you sure you want to wear those Kobe's, man?" And he's like, "I was just looking on some website last night. Like they're going for $500." And we looked up the price on, I think it was StockX, and there was that same pair of Kobe's going for $500 on StockX. And he's like, "Well, I'm going to keep wearing them for basketball. They're the most comfortable basketball shoes I got." Is that sacrilege? Because I mean, basketball can put a toll on some shoes.
I mean, I have a pair of Jordan 28s that were purchased for me actually by my wife when we were in college. That I wear exclusively as basketball shoes. It was when Russell Westbrook first signed with Jordan, so they're a pair of his sort of line of the 28s. And I wore, I just destroyed the insole on those things because I wore them to the basketball court at the student rec center like every single day. I had a pair of Kobe's actually, the Kobe 9 Easters I know they're worth a lot. They're worth a lot of money, and I gave them to a guy for his son. They were looking for Kobe's, and I gave them to a guy for his son for like $100. Just he wanted them, couldn't afford them for resale, and so I gave them to him because I hadn't worn them in forever. But like I had, I got those when they came out, like 5 or 6 years ago or whenever it was, and I got those when they first came out, and I wore those for basketball too. So I mean, like, there are some people that just put them up and have them on display, or put shoes up and leave them in the box or whatever and never touch them. I don't know what all the technical terminology is, but like, I wear them. I don't care. I wear them. I think they're cool.
Good enough, man. And I had to get in there on the shoe collection and get an update. Tomorrow, Nebraska open practice. Who are you circling to watch? If you had two guys that you had to zero in on, who are they? Give me one offense, give me one defense.
Omar Toure on offense.
Omar Toure, sure. That works.
On offense, I want to see those two guys. Defense, I'm going to say, it's hard because there's so many. There's so many guys in the secondary that I want to see, right? And you've got some of those guys that are still a little limited because they're coming back from injuries last year. Talking about Miles Farmer and Braxton Clark, I really want to see what those two guys look like. They've been here for a couple years, and both guys were going to have prominent roles, if not for injury, last year. At least that's what they've told us. Quentin Newsome is really, really interesting as a opposite corner, a complementary corner to Cam Taylor-Britt. Noah Pulla-Gates is a guy that we've kind of been told, yeah, you're going to see him on the field this year. He's ready for a role. Adab Joseph is kind of there waiting in the wings. I'm very interested in that secondary because I really do agree with Travis Fisher when he says they have the right mix in the secondary to have one of the best secondaries in the conference and be in that conversation for some of the better secondaries in the country. So I'm really curious to see what those guys look like. And I'm curious to get sort of an extended look for the first time in a year at what those guys look like in a practice setting, which I know, I cheated on both answers. But
no, that's fine. It was an expanded answer, and Derek Peterson's with us. And no, the secondary is pretty unique because of just how they get coached, how they're trained. I mean, they're cross-trained. Yeah, you may be a corner, but you're going to know how to do safety and vice versa. And with Noah Pulla-Gates, yeah, he's a guy that's put the time in, gotten healthy, and we saw what a monster impact pre-injury that Farmer made. I mean, just think of that Northwestern game and how well he played and how well he adjusted to a really good football team in Northwestern after just a couple of series, not playing college ball that much, but using his practice time and getting better. So I'm with you there on Farmer and Clark and Newsome opposite Cam Taylor-Britt is intriguing. And I was pretty fascinated by some of the talking points about Nadab Joseph from Coach Chinander this week. Just what type of physical specimen you have that's now kind of got locked in, Derek, mentally and off the field. So it sounds like he's a guy that could really make a push. And Nebraska, it sounds like Nebraska's feeling good as is with their options at corner.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you can sort of extend that to just the defense in general. It's been a painstaking process for them to just sort of build the kind of depth that they're comfortable with to sort of make it through a Big Ten season. And this year, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, I think can be the first year of their tenure here, this coaching staff's tenure, Scott Frost's tenure here, that where we might be able to say, like, yeah, they're there. They've got the depth because we just rattled off a bunch of names at DB that we're interested in, and those are guys that are behind three really, really good DBs that are going to take up the lion's share of the snaps probably at three of those four spots. And then you go to linebacker, and just at inside linebacker, like Will Honus is a little limited this spring. And that might work in Nebraska's favor just from a depth building standpoint because you've got Chris Kolarovich coming in from the FCS level that they seem really, really high on. You've got Nick Henrich and Luke Reimer right there, and you can get some snaps for a guy like Randolph Kapai. You can get some snaps for maybe try to see if you can get Jackson Hanna out there. You can get some snaps to Va. They got a lot of dudes at linebacker, and they got a bunch of dudes on the defensive line. Like everybody's favorite 2020 recruit, the polar bear, Nash Hutmacher. It's like, all right, where are we going to find snaps for this dude? Like there are just so many options kind of across the board that you can start talking about and talk about why you're interested in them for like 5 minutes. I think they're happy with Dab Joseph in the secondary, but they're happy with a lot of guys just on the defense. And so, Brandon Vogel and I talked about this on my podcast. Like, this is going to be an interesting year for them just in terms of we might be able to finally see, some of the fruits of just all of the labor that they've put in trying to build the depth of this team.
Derek, whenever you look at that large crop of guys returning, I got about a minute left here. A lot of Husker fans expecting these guys are just going to step back in and start again next season. But is that the case? I mean, there's the younger guys below them. You talk about depth, but are they necessarily going to be depth guys? Can you see any of those guys actually jumping over some of these guys who've decided to return for another season? And instead of waiting in the wings for another season, they can actually make that jump and start this year? Or are those guys that are turning pretty much shoo-ins for starting?
I mean, it's kind of a yes and no answer. Nobody is ever really a shoo-in as a starter. Anything can happen. We're still, 5 or 6 months away from the start of the season or whatever it is. But at the same time, JoJo Doleman's going to play a ton. Cam Taylor-Britt and Deontay Williams and Markel Dismuke, those guys are going to play a ton. Ben Stilley's going to have a role on the defensive line. Those guys, just in terms of the combination that they have of talent and experience, and just those are the guys that are sort of the heart and soul of your defense. Those guys are going to play a ton. The thing is, and there's another thing that we talked about on my podcast is I'm increasingly less interested in a traditional depth chart because, ideally they just want a bunch of dudes that they can put on the field. And if you have Cam Taylor-Britt, you can move around if you have Braxton Clark and Quentin Newsome ready to go at corner. And you can do some fun stuff with Cam Taylor-Britt. You can do some fun stuff with the crop of linebackers that they have if they have a bunch of depth. So, to answer your question, I think those guys, no coach is going to say those guys are a shoo-in, but they're going to play. They're going to play a lot.
Derek Peterson with us. Dr. Petey, we'll see you at practice tomorrow. Thanks for the time today.
Sounds good, man. Thank you.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me. Try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back in Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel will get into some Husker baseball in a moment. Bill Doleman in 20 minutes. Rick Pizzo, some Big Ten NFL draft thoughts here next hour, just to kind of put a little bit of a bow on the open practice tomorrow. And first and foremost, what are you putting down number-wise? 4,000's the max. Do they sell out? Well, not sell out, but is it maximum capacity? Is it $3,000? Is it somewhere in between 3 and 4? Are you going?
I got to go work, so I don't think so.
So you're like, no.
No, but I got to figure out how I got to find a spring game ticket, though.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, I need to
It's going to be a reenactment of the Nebraska-Miami game in 14 where there's some dude on the corner right before you get to South Stadium with like 8 together, their 50-yard line, and he needs a G for him.
See, my problem with it, I just have so many like good Husker football outfits that I haven't gotten the chance to wear now.
We're getting back into fashion.
Like I bought these outfits for a reason. I need to show them off. I didn't buy them for myself.
So you just don't randomly wear Nebraska gear around anymore?
Well, not like like some of that stuff's got some real steez to it. And like,
what do you have?
I got a 91 crew neck sweatshirt. That's really cool. Yeah, so
like
it's like
1991
from 1991 vintage. It was between that and a 94 Orange Bowl crew neck sweatshirt, and I decided to get the other one. It's got like it's Herbie Husker's head imposed on a Husker football player, and it's got like it's really cool looking. And then I also got a starter jacket that I was actually
like the all red starter jacket.
The all red starter jacket, button up, and it's actually got a name on it. And I'm trying to figure out who this football player is. Maybe I got to talk to Babcock. It said Holiday.
Really?
So I'm not sure whose jacket it was. Holaday. If anyone knows, call in. I think that might be a question from Mike Babcock.
It's not Holloway, is it?
No, it's not Holloway. It's Holiday. I was like looking through rosters. Like I was like, who is this guy? And I don't know. But I look really good in the jacket, so that's all that really matters.
Those were the best, like the starter snap-ups.
Yep.
Were good.
Yep.
Those were good. So Gabe Ervin tomorrow. Pretty intriguing. He's the guy who's been available, put the work in. And listen, tomorrow's going to be, and I like vanilla ice cream, so I'm good with it being pretty basic and standard. I'm just excited to in person see the team hit a little bit, and we'll see how much contact there is, how much of a preview to May 1st it is. But Gabe Ervin's exciting. Excited to see him run the football and just what he can do with that first unit offensive line group. Give me 5, 10, 15 plays of him trying to run downhill. Omar Manning, right? Is he a unicorn or is he real? And he's a special enough talent. He could be a unicorn. And there's been footage of him making plays, but between him and Toure, I mean, that's cool. The quarterbacks, right? Here's a question for you. And what is the push going to continue to be like for who settles into that number 2 spot? Adrian's doing his thing this spring, but where's Smothers at in comparison to Harburg? You'd ideally want a redshirt Harburg. But if he is a guy that is wowing you and is capable physically and the mental part continues to come along, and his athleticism and arm strength give you a better option or have more upside. Say he just is better, but he's younger. And I'm not saying Smothers is not doing some good things. But you got to ask yourself here, okay, there's Adrian, there's the portal, there's Harburg, there's Smothers. God forbid if 2 a.m. gets dinged up, where do you go here for 2021? At some point during the season. with Harburg. And you got the 4-game redshirt rule, I understand. But with Smothers, he needs to continue to get reps and develop. And I think it's encouraging with what we've heard, but we get to see. We get to see a little bit tomorrow on where Smothers is at throwing the football. We also get to see a little bit tomorrow with where Harburg's at when it comes to what he can do and what kind of grasp he has on the offense. That's very real. Where the backup quarterbacks are at and how they look against a defense, whether it's first-team defense or fifth-team defense. You got a lot of dudes on the defensive side of the ball that we just went through an entire roster of corners. There's 4 starters, and then the guys we've named have all been in the program for a while. That's who you're going to see Smothers and Harburg going against. It may be Cam Taylor-Britt, it may be Noah Pola-Gates, it may be Dismuke, it could be Lynham, it could be a guy like Nadab Joseph. So that kind of intrigues me tomorrow here, where the quarterbacks are at. And if they're handing off all of the time, fine. But just to see him in pads and to see him in action's all right. Phildarius Payne's a guy that has had a whole offseason. He was mentioned this week. You know, what kind of guy can he become getting after the quarterback? Because he's gotten stronger. He's gotten his role down a little bit more. And he's a guy that showed something to me the last 3 games, at least getting into the backfield. So he's an option. Outside linebacker is always a discussion point. Blaze Gunnerson, Jamari Butler, guys that you didn't hear or see much of last year because they were getting acclimated. They'll be on display tomorrow, too.
Yeah, can somebody just develop a pass rush move that can work for them? That's what I'm looking for. But also, at the middle linebacker spot, we had Derek talk about it last segment. You kind of know Honus is going to have a lion's share of the snaps at the middle backer spot. Who's next to him is a little bit up in the air. But then, I mean, you saw last year, the Huskers were running out 4 to 5 inside linebackers every single game. So just having one guy in Will Honus, then you got your second guy, maybe it's Henrich, maybe it's Reimer. Yeah,
you have 3, but you probably need 4 or 5.
Exactly. So I'm looking to see the transfer Kolarvich. How is he looking in the spring? I mean, he did great in the testing numbers. Has he kind of picked up in as the inside linebacker is kind of the quarterback of that defense? Is he able to step in there? That's what I'm looking to see. I'm really excited to see how that inside linebacker spot looks, because that's the most up in the air position, because I mean, defensive line, you got so much returning talent, got a lot of returning talent in the secondary. You know, you got JoJo Doleman at outside backer and also Garrett Nelson, but who is going to be that inside linebacker spot to lock it down next to Will Honus? Here's
your 4 right now, and can you get through the season with these 4 with Honus and Reimers and Kolarvich and then you got Henrich, right? And Henrich can kind of moonlight inside or outside, and the way Henrich finished the season, I mean, he led the team in tackles against Rutgers with 12 because he's all over it. I mean, he's a hell of a good football player, and he's been able to stay healthy. Those are your 4, and I know it was conference only last year for 8 games, but to get through the season like they did with Reimers, who got dinged from time to time but still played great football. Same with Honus. You know, he had the offseason growing procedure. So both of those guys went through the 8-game kind of war last year, and then you had Henrich come along and picking up the Northern Iowa kids really big. Now, there's other inside backers to look at, but those are your 4, and how do they navigate tomorrow and beyond?
Yeah, one last name to look at in the defense, the pride of Lincoln Southeast, Isaac Gifford. Heard a lot about him in the
he is so diverse with what he can do. We'll wind down hour 1. Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Proud of Fairbury's on the way. Bill Doleman, 10 minutes. He'll have a take or 2 on the recruiting and transfer situation in college football now that was passed by the NCAA. Darren Ravel reporting the numbers here for the month of March, with several states that have legalized sports gaming. That's on the doorstep here, because you've got the casinos that are going to be put to an expansion when it comes to poker and blackjack and the casino gaming here in Lincoln and course, in central Nebraska, in Grand Island, and I think also in Columbus, and of course across the river you've got the casinos there in Council Bluffs. New Jersey had $860 million wagered in the month of March. NCAA tournament, yes, get it. Pennsylvania, $560 million. Indiana, $317 million. Michigan, $214 million in 20 days.
Yeah, because they didn't legalize till like halfway through March.
Right. Iowa, $161 million. So you have make that 4 Big Ten states with it. And, of course, that's kind of the next question here. Will you allow a sports book and sports gambling to go with your casino games? I mean, you would assume. Now, I don't know what type of restrictions will be put on if you get the sports gaming aspect passed. Will you be able to bet on Nebraska or not? Or bet against Nebraska or not? Pull the old Pete Rose. Well, I didn't bet on him. Didn't bet against him either. So those are some incredible numbers.
At this point, I see the argument against it is like, oh, it can lead to gambling addiction. But like,
if you have one, you might as well bring in the sports gaming side.
I mean, my thing with it is just people can drive to Council Bluffs and go gamble if they really want to.
Yeah, we did how many shows from sports books pre-COVID?
Yeah, I mean, I saw the Gary Sharp show was up in Council Bluffs today because people are going up there and gambling. So why lose our tax dollars here in the state of Nebraska to the state of Iowa whenever? Because it's 20 minutes from people in Omaha. They can just go drive across the river.
You can walk across the bridge and fire the app up.
Yeah.
You're halfway across the bridge. Give me 100.5 on the Dodgers tonight.
Yeah. So when you really look at that, why not just take the tax money off of it here in Nebraska and get a little money? I mean,
or a lot of money.
I see some of our roads and all the construction work we're putting in. I bet we could use some more road construction, honestly.
I'm more interested in not, selling my firstborn so I can license my vehicle.
Oh, or just lower my property taxes a little bit. How about that?
Elijah Herbel for U.S. Senate.
Please vote for me.
2030. Make it happen. We will spend some time. Bill Doleman is a wealth of knowledge. He'll have a take or two. He won't get to watch the open practice tomorrow because it's not televised. That'd be kind of cool if it was streamed. But no doubt the spring game is... I'm going to try and get him back here for that. We're going to work on him here in about 5 minutes to have a Bill Doleman welcome home party and get him back here for the spring game. Jump on a train, crash in the basement, feed treats to the Labradoodle and German Shepherd so they don't take your blanket, and make an appearance. All right, Hour 2 is coming up. Rick Pizzo, Big Ten Network, shortly. It's Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Into Hour 2, it's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Rick Pizzo is coming up, Big Ten Network. We say hi to the pride of Fairbury, NBC Sports. Bill Doleman with us, at Bill Doleman on Twitter. Billy D, we are going to set your official visit or unofficial visit date for May 1st, the spring game. Get on a train, get here, watch your Big Red team participate. Can we make that happen?
Well, I'd love for that to happen if the weather allows it. I've got about 6 inches of snow outside right now, so Merry Christmas to one and all. But yeah, if the weather clears up and I'm able to get out of the winter fortress that is Colorado, I certainly would love to see a spring game, or at least see something that resembles spring of anything at this point.
Yeah, I can't help you with the snow. Condolences on that. But I am thinking of you and your Iditarod Huskies. But no, dude, getting here for spring game. We'll set up a Friday Average Joe reunion And
that'd be fun.
And we'll do a May 1st pregame.
All right, I'm in, and the price will be right, I'm sure.
Yes, you can either stay at my mother's home or can fight the dogs for the couch in the basement.
There we go. I'm in.
All right, done. Hold him to it, Elijah.
Me?
Well, I'm saying the audio here. Blast this out. Bill Doleman's coming to Lincoln May 1st.
I was going to say, how do you want me to do anything about it? You want me to go to Denver and put a gun to his head?
No, not at all. Trank dart is how you do it.
That I can do.
You can jump on a train, Bill, can't you?
Yeah, if the weather allows, yeah, absolutely.
You and weather. Okay, you're dealing with the transfer rule as a guy who's covered college sports and football and basketball for many years. What's your take? I just heard Brian Kelly say all the right things. Barry Alvarez told us earlier this week that he understands it. He gets it. Coach Brown, Ron Brown, was with us yesterday. He gets that it's not fair for coaches to go team hop, but it's not okay for kids to do it, so there needs to be a little bit of change to the old ironclad, you lose a year if you leave. That's been blown out of the water thanks to COVID. So now it is open season. You can leave in basketball and football and not lose a year. You have the ability to do that. Basketball, Bill's been dealing with the one and done and the transfer setup a little bit longer, or they've adapted a little bit better because of smaller numbers for a while here, but football coaches want control. They really don't have control now.
I think the theme of what you said about Brian Kelly and Barry Alvarez and Ron and others is this is just the way it is now. Mm-hmm. So those of us who are old school enough to be wearing Rondale shoes, single bar face masks, neck rolls and J pads. You got to adapt, and I think for the most part, everybody has seen something coming in recent years. Now, it has certainly, been picking up a lot of steam, probably over the last 3 or 4 years, that there was some inevitability to this. And I think part of it is you've got the NCAA losing its grip on its power over college sports. Who has that power right now? I really don't know. I think you're looking at the power, Power 5 conferences or whatever the case might be. But even there, you've got conferences that are really holding on. I mean, the Pac-12, sure, they had a decent run in the NCAA basketball tournament, but there's not a lot of great leadership right now in the Pac-12. The Big Ten, as we know, is not what it was under Jim Delaney, but it's certainly a powerhouse in name. Mm-hmm. The SEC, the ACC's got momentum, all of that. But so. Are we looking at something in the grand picture of collegiate athletics where the NCAA is really losing its grip and eventually will? And are you going to have, as I said many, many years ago, 64 powerful schools that run their own organization, and then you've got the NCAA kind of governing over a different group of sports and schools? I don't know where we're going. And I'm not sure that, that the NCAA knows either. But they had to do something to get on board with the direction that, the players, the power that the players are getting, that they had to at least acknowledge that. So, yeah, you knew it was going to happen. But what's it going to look like on the other side? And I think that's where the real danger is. Why are these guys going to transfer? Certainly you have the name, image, and likeness, coming down. And I've said for a long time, Nebraska seems to be poised at the forefront of that. And you've got an opportunity with a school like Nebraska where if you are a football player, basketball player, volleyball player, whatever, you've got an opportunity to do pretty well for yourself with your NIL. Whereas, if you're going to UCLA, you're not. You're just going to be a pebble on the beach, mm-hmm. because there's so many other celebrities and places that money's going. So what's that going to look like? What's going to entice somebody to transfer from one school to another? Is it going to become a bidding war? Are we going to see some semblance of free agency? Will there be a time in the coming years where you're actually going to pay players a salary. And again, at Nebraska, it can't all be just about football and men's basketball. Nebraska women's volleyball players could do extremely well with NIL and the opportunities to make some money. So there's just so much out there in this vast landscape that we're entering into that nobody's really talking about. And I fear that it's going to be, every headache is going to be taken on as it comes and not looking out well beyond it to say, okay, what could happen? And what is going to be the enticement to transfer from one school to the other? And I'm not going to cry for the power schools, but I still look at this going, how much money is invested in going out and getting some 16, 17, 18-year-old kid to sign on the dotted line? Is it tens of thousands? Is it hundreds of thousands? How many man hours are spent on Zoom calls and texting and all that just to get a kid that you hope will be good? And then he's there for a year or two and decides, I'm not happy here. I'm going to go over here. And there's no compensation for, again, it's a multi-million-dollar operation. I get that. But shouldn't there be some compensation of some sort to the school that loses the player when they invested so much time, money, and interest in getting him to begin with? And when you look at professional sports, typically if you lose a player, now sometimes there's the unrestricted free agent, but typically you might, you lose a draft pick or you got to pay some money back. I don't know what that looks like. I don't. But there's just so much out there right now that they're going to make this rule, which is where we're going, but what's on the other side of it and what's that going to look like? And I think I'm not sure anybody's really looked into it that far. Bill
Doleman's with us, Hail Varsity Radio, at Bill Doleman on Twitter, NBC Sports, the Pride of Fairbury. Bill, what would your approach be right now if you were the new college football or basketball czar/commissioner where you've got this free transfer rule? How would you advise, or even if you're a coach or a recruiting coordinator, how would you go about things? A, it's okay now to finish second in recruiting because that door can stay open and you don't burn a bridge. And if a kid goes someplace and it doesn't work out, look at Justin Fields, started at Georgia, but man, he liked Ohio State, ended up transferring, worked out for him. Same with Burrow, right? Burrow ended up going somewhere because he couldn't win the job at Ohio State. It worked out well. And the grad transfer is one thing, but the kid who isn't bought into the regiment, or it's vastly different from kind of getting his own way throughout high school, just worst case scenario, he's going to bolt, and it's going to be a discipline issue where he doesn't like the rules, doesn't want to follow the rules. I'm going to go someplace that'll let me be me. And it might not be any different, but it's sure a heck of a sales pitch. Do you start recruiting the portal more? Do you get a deal done with the NCAA where you can have 5 scholarships available for transfer, or you get a scholarship reimbursed if you lose a transfer student? I mean, can't that be part of the conversation? What's the best path forward here, not only from a recruiting standpoint, but from a compensation? How would you work that?
I don't know. That's the thing, and I would bet that there's some guys in power suits in a high-rise office complexes going, I don't know either. I'm sure somebody does, which is great. But right now, what you see is you get the question asked of coaches and administrators is, "What do you think of the new rule?" But you don't hear a lot of follow-up conversation about the NIL. About other sports. It's great that other sports have been able to have the, you transfer from A to B and you get a player right away. Okay, that's all well and good, but there's a certain market for certain athletes in certain areas of the country where they're not marketable, and you don't hear much about that. It's all about football and men's basketball, but in this climate of our culture. Everybody's got to be in the conversation. So I don't know what the answer is to all that, and I don't see anybody else expressing what the answer is to all that. You've got a lot of people advocating for the players, and that's great. They should be allowed to transfer. They should be allowed to play right away. Okay, that's fine. That's going to happen. But what happens when it doesn't work out at that school? And what happens if they don't get the money or they don't get the NIL or they don't? What's all going to happen to all this? Do schools get compensated? And again, they're multi-million-dollar operations, so don't cry for them necessarily. But yeah, you're probably going to have somebody on staff now. We've got offensive analysts and defensive analysts and player personnel directors. You might have schools now, hiring on the transfer portal recruiting coordinator. Is that going to be part of the new era? I just marvel at how vast of a territory we're entering into without a lot of answers, other than players are going to finally have the opportunity to go from A to B. And beyond that, who knows what it's going to look like? I fear for some schools, maybe all schools, what's this going to do to team chemistry? You bring in these guys that you've wined and dined and you've gotten them to come in, and some of them have been committed to your program for 2 or 3 years, and the next thing you know, they're in the program, but then you hear that, wait a minute, there's another quarterback over here, especially in the quarterback position, that's unhappy at Georgia or unhappy at Ohio State or whatever the case might be. And here you are at Nebraska waiting your turn, but then, this shiny object is out there in Ohio or in Georgia or wherever the case might be. And all of a sudden you're looking over your shoulder like, well, what are they going to do? Are you going to bring somebody in? What does that do to team chemistry and camaraderie, which is different in colleges, in the college ranks than it is in the pro ranks. Mm-hmm. Pro ranks, for the most part, guys understand that, you can be whacked at any point. You can be traded. Your job's online and it's a business. But some guys may not quite comprehend that in the college level. Like, are these guys always going to be looking over my shoulder for somebody else to come in and take my job? I think that's going to be an issue too.
Well, and there needs to be a point of work hard, get better, develop. It's okay to not be Trevor Lawrence or Tommy Frazier and start by your 6th game as a true freshman, as a redshirt freshman or even as a sophomore. I mean, you've had a handful of quarterbacks that just got 1 year and then went to the NFL. I mean, that has happened. Guys have waited their turn. Mac Jones, is he great, or is he a guy that was surrounded by incredible talent? Yes, you can answer yes to both, but he's only a 1-year starter because guess who he sat behind and paid his dues to? Guys that are starting quarterbacks right now, guys that are high-level picks. So that's very interesting with the chemistry. Bill, before we go, the over-unders came out with all of the NFL out of Vegas, and I want your take here. The over-under on wins for Denver is at 7.5. How does that number grab you?
Probably pretty accurate. I'm not sure where that half win is going to come from, but nevertheless,
they win 7 or 8 is my question.
Given the Broncos, they might find a way to get a half a victory. Mm-hmm. Like we talked about last week, it's all going to come down to the development of Drew Lock, and I think that's the hand that they're going to play. You've got the kid from North Dakota State who's kind of become the sexy name this week going into the draft. But I really get the sense out here, and I've kind of followed it a little bit more since we've talked, that's the guy, and they're going to ride or die with him this year, and he might be good enough to get you 7.5 wins. I don't think he's a game changer, but I think he's probably a serviceable quarterback, and it's going to depend on what they put around him, and he probably ought to be a little bit better, knowing that they're not going to bring in Deshaun Watson now. But he'll have the pressure of being this is my make or break season, and I don't think they'll if he doesn't get 7.5 wins this year, they'll definitely go find somebody next year.
Yeah, they'll give Locke one more season, and I don't know though if they get one of the quarterbacks to him in that spot, I'd look at it. I don't know. That's just me. I'd look.
They might. Who knows? But, nobody's talking about the Broncos all that much right now, which is actually kind of surprising. Nobody's talking about the Avalanche either because they've had to shut down. Mm. And nobody's talking about the Nuggets because Murray got hurt. And nobody's talking about the Rockies because they play the Dodgers every night, and for the last 5 years they've not beaten the Dodgers but more than like once or twice. So it's not exactly a great era of professional sports. Although the Avalanche are playing pretty well, but they had to shut down for like the next 2 weeks. So that's unfortunate for them. So it's not exactly a big professional sports market at this moment.
Billy D, we'll get you a Fairbury brand, and we'll see you next week. We'll talk to you next week, and we'll see you on May 1st.
All right, then. 98 days to the Summer Olympics.
Take care, bud.
See you.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it, it's Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Big Ten buffet time as we head into the weekend. We say hi to Rick Pizzo at BTN. Rick Pizzo. Rick, what's good, man? How are you?
Busy weekend, my man. We got the Big Ten kind of dominating in volleyball, right? You got 6 teams all winning in the second round, all moving on to the regional semifinals this weekend, including top seed Wisconsin. The Huskers are in there, look really good in their opening round, or second round sweep, I should say. So that's kind of where our focus is this weekend, but also, it's that time of the year where you get spring games, some more publicized than others, and you get to kind of get a gauge a little bit of where the football teams are going to be when they open in the fall.
Yeah, and not the spring game, but 4,000 eyeballs on Nebraska tomorrow as they'll have an open practice, and I'll be front and center with a few folks bundled up, ready for an open practice. And, what are you intrigued about here with Nebraska, specifically on the offensive side of the ball here? Where's your kind of anticipation or excitement level here for the Big Red this spring? Because, it's kind of moved from, it's time for Nebraska to show up and do their thing to there's been some movement to optimism, excitement, but still ready and cautious about boarding the hype train, Rick.
Yeah, I think cautious is the right word, Chris. Cautiously optimistic, right?
Yes.
So you know who the quarterback is going to be. There's no more questions about kind of the back and forth. And I think you and I may have touched on this in the past. I think the big question is going to be, who's the game breaker offensively? Because you need one in this offense. Preferably you have multiple in this offense. But who is going to be that guy that can kind of take the top off, that keeps opposing defensive coordinators up at night, trying to figure out, how you stop them? And you think about, it's not just the Ohio States, but kind of teams that maybe made a little bit of a jump over the past 3 or 4 years, or you even look back to a decade ago when Michigan State started to make its jump. They had 1 or 2 guys who were Big Ten receiver of the year. And you look at when Purdue made a little bit of a jump a couple of years ago and having Rondale Moore, now they weren't able to sustain that because injuries to Moore. So you think about those kind of things. You need someone offensively who can give your quarterback the ability to improvise, buy time, and to give your running back a little bit of extra space, because linebackers and safeties are all worried about the game breaker. Does Nebraska have that guy after the departure of Wandale? I think that's something that you really have to be focused on and watch in the spring and certainly through fall ball.
Rick Pizzo's with us, Hail Varsity Radio, Big Ten buffet time. Rick, we'll get to some NFL draft thoughts here in a moment. I want to go to Big Ten baseball here. I saw Baseball America's projected field of 64, and Nebraska's a 2 seed. It looks like Michigan's a 2 seed in the South Bend Regional, and Ohio State sneaks in as a 3 seed. I know Indiana's up there in the conference standings as well, but your overall gauge on the Big Ten, 3 bids doesn't sound like enough for a Power 5. Will Bolt has been saying, look, he thinks the Big Ten's good enough to be a 5-bid league in most seasons. What's your gauge on the league so far?
I agree with Will. I think most seasons that's the case. I think the league was really hurt by the pandemic last year. Momentum had really been built. Michigan to the College World Series, and other teams prior to that. You mentioned Indiana. Obviously, Nebraska is always hanging around. The Hoosiers made that run with Schmidt 8-10 years ago and really started to, I think, gain some respect for the Big Ten. And I think last year, and not being able to do what the teams needed to do in the Big Ten really took a lot of momentum, certainly from a national respect perspective away. And then this year with no Big Ten tournament, how exactly do you handle these teams where there's no auto bid? I think there's just a lot of questions. I think at the end of the day, Chris, the league will get 4. I do think that whether it's Indiana having a little bit of a run, I think Michigan and Nebraska will end up getting a little bit more respect by the end of the year. I don't know if either one maybe as a 2 seed go into the region with the 2 worst 1 seeds, so you do have a chance to move on once you get to those super regionals. I don't know. I mean, I think that this is a battle that the Big Ten has been fighting for a long time. And unfortunately, because of the weather restrictions and because you have games canceled, especially early in the season, and in this year you're playing games outside the geographic footprint, I think it's a battle the Big Ten's going to face, unfortunately, most seasons.
It is. And what's going to change minds is the ability to do the non-conference games that you see scheduled in California, Arizona, Texas. Can you match up with some Big 12, some SEC, some Pac-12 powers and do well and help out your own RPI? A league-only schedule is kind of aiding and abetting this outlook, I think, for the Big Ten this postseason.
Absolutely agree.
So, Rick Pizzo's with us, Hail Varsity Radio, Big Ten Buffet. Rick, got to hear from Fred Hoiberg yesterday. A couple of additions here. Nebraska, a top 15 recruiting class for the mayor and company, and lots of excitement. There was some progress made for Nebraska. I know they didn't have a high total of wins in the Big Ten, but they were competitive. As you look at Nebraska's roster, just real quick, where are you at with where Nebraska could move, taking steps forward in conjunction with the rest of the league? I mean, the league was really tough and really good this year, and I expect it to continue to be that way, but I don't know if the league will be as good next year as they were this year. Can Nebraska continue to climb that ladder and, make a statement here next season to be in the thick of some postseason discussions?
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard next season, Chris. I think it's 2 years. I do, because I think you get that recruiting class in. They're still freshmen, right? And you're playing in this league, to your point, will not be as good as it was last year. I mean, last year's regular season was, at least statistically and by the metrics, the greatest conference regular season that any Power 5 league has ever had, that any league has had in Division I college basketball. So it'll be tough to match that, but you still have some really good players. You still have the best collection of coaches in all of college basketball. Fred certainly falls into that category, but you're trying to do so with a really young team. And I know you got the highest touted recruit individually and one of the best, if not the best, recruiting seasons in history coming in, but you still have to develop those guys. You still have to get them ready for Big Ten basketball. So I think this next year, the 21-22 season, we'll see improvement and some growth. I think then it's that class, when you keep them for their sophomore seasons and mix them in with that veteran leadership. You look at 2022-23, that's the year I think that maybe you look for that biggest jump in the early stages of Fred's career. Rick
Pizzo's with us, and I think 2 years for sure. We'll see where they end up. McGowan's, a lot of excitement with him. You've got I think 70% of your scoring back here with that extra season. Nebraska's got to find a point guard. They got to take better care of the basketball or develop some guys into being more steady or reliable point guards. It could happen. They'll have more practice time, but I like what Fred's doing. Rick, you are loaded up, man. NFL draft is nearing. We're 2 weeks away. You are locked in with so many of the prospects. You've got just a ton of Big Ten talent that'll go first round, potentially a couple of Penn State guys in the first round. Of course, Justin Fields, where does he go? Payne out of Michigan, slated to go in the teens. And, of course, 2 first-round projected picks in Slater and Newsom for Northwestern. Pretty banner draft potentially here for the Big Ten.
Yeah, you could see, I think, 7 Ohio State guys defensively drafted, 12 overall. I mean, one of the fastest movers. I'm glad you mentioned Rashawn Slater, the offensive lineman from Northwestern, going up the draft board. Another guy that's been jumping, who's not going to be a first-rounder, but I have the chance to interview him later this weekend, is former Illinois wide receiver Josh Imatorbhebhe. Posted a 46.5-inch vertical. You think about a guy like DK Metcalf and what he can do from a pure physical standpoint if you go on the right team. Imatorbhebhe, to me, could be a day 2 or 3 absolute steal. I think there's no chance that Justin Fields is around. I've seen projections having him at 15. I don't think there's any way that he goes by the 49ers, the Jets, the Panthers, all of his most recent pro day, all kind of with some quarterback questions or huge quarterback questions for a couple of those teams. I think eventually it's going to be really hard for somebody, a GM or a scout, to pull the trigger on a guy like Trey Lance out of North Dakota State before you do it with Justin Fields, who's beaten Clemson and faced Alabama. So I think you're going to hear a lot of Big Ten names early, but I think probably the guy who has the most immediate impact is going to be Penn State linebacker Micah Parsons. He's going to be off the board early. He is a physical freak. He is sideline to sideline as fast as any linebacker that we've covered. He hits like a truck, and he really knows football. I mean, he's not one of those linebackers who could just come in and be a heat-seeking missile. He understands how to play the game. I think he's going to be a plug-and-play guy in year number one. Based on the system that he goes to, he's going to be an early pick, so you're probably not going to a very good defense. He's going to be a guy that, to me, in year one and year two is going to load up with 90, 100 tackles. He's going to be really fun to watch.
Selfishly, I have seen him go to the Giants, projected to slide to your New York Giants.
I'd be okay with that, my friend.
I was going to say, you'd be as happy as all get out. The thing with Parsons is, and you nailed it, I mean, what was it? We were talking 4.5, 4.4. I mean, his 40 time was nuts. I remember him being here when Riley was coaching, part of the Friday Night Lights, June recruiting circuit, and he's running go routes down the sideline. A linebacker's beating defensive backs for 50-50 balls, and that's on the offensive side. He was a guy at Penn State that didn't have a lot of sack numbers. Now, he had TFL numbers, but he was so good in that drop zone area, they let him just do whatever, but they didn't necessarily treat him like Lawrence Taylor's, position where they just blitz him all the time, correct? No,
but think about what linebackers are these days in the NFL, right? They're not those guys that are just standing outside in the 3-4 or way outside in the 4-3 and rushing the quarterbacks, because you have gone to a more college-style system in the NFL. These quote-unquote flankers or these slot receivers who are just so dangerous, but you also have really athletic pass-catching tight ends. You can't cover all those guys with defensive backs. Nobody's playing, a 3-8 in the NFL system. So you need a linebacker who can cover a really athletic tight end. Can you cover Travis Kelce? Can you cover Mike Parsons can do that, but then he can also get into the backfield. I just think that right now with where the NFL is offensively, he is a linebacker that every defense is going to covet.
To flip it around, Rick Pizzo's with us. Rondale Moore, I mean, just a freak athlete, incredible. Do you see his stock rising between now and draft day? I've seen second or third round, but do you think he may sneak into the first, or is the size the concern?
I think not just the size, but the injuries. And I think there was a little bit of question about his desire. How much did he really want to come back from that injury and play after that All-American freshman season? To me, he's a guy that's going to have to be the right system. He's not just this is a wide receiver we can draft, and he can go play vertical, he can go play across the middle, he can play in the slot. Now, would the Patriots love him in their system? Absolutely. Would the Chiefs love him in their system? Absolutely. But again, what wide receivers don't want to play with Patrick? They don't want to play with Tom Brady, another spot that I think they would fit. I think Rondale could be a really good long-time wide receiver in the NFL, and I think he has to be in the right system. I mean, you put him on the outside time and time again against NFL corners who can run, but guys who are also going to be 6'1", 6'2", 190, 205. That's a really tough matchup. You can't expect him to go up vertical, high point of football and come down with it 50-50 against those guys.
And we're back.
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Rick Pizzo's with us. Rick spoke with Russ Landy. He's done work with you in the Big Ten Network, draft analyst, former scout for Cleveland and the Rams, and talked to him about some of the Nebraska kids. He says Hymas could be a third or fourth round guy. He expects Boodle to be drafted. He thinks there could be 3 Huskers that go. Hymas is a guy that they're thinking can play a lot of different spots, and that's good news for Nebraska as Coach Frost is looking to get more and more guys into the NFL here with the next wave of guys. Before we wrap, what's your read and take on Fields? There's been so much information, information, disinformation on Justin Fields. I see number 3 overall to San Francisco, and then you touched on a little earlier, him falling all the way to the teens. What do you believe about his transition to the NFL here within the next couple of weeks? Yes, he'll be a first-rounder, but where do you think he fits?
Well, I think you bring up an interesting point about the information, misinformation. I spoke with a couple of guys earlier this week about this, and, the draft is a little bit shady when it comes to that kind of stuff, because I have spoken with multiple coaches and players, both on and off the record, about Justin Fields, and any concerns or questions that we've heard from the outside about his work ethic, they say are completely unfounded. They believe that information is coming from teams who are going to be picking between 10 and 15 and trying to get that information out there to scare off teams like the 49ers, like the Jets, who may be interested in Darnold. That absolutely happens within the NFL. You share this information, you hope that maybe it drops a guy in the draft board a question, and instead he's available at 10 or 12 where otherwise he would not have been. I have heard nothing but the opposite, that Justin Fields has worked tirelessly to improve his craft. And if you watched his first pro day, and the throwing exhibition that he put on and how perfectly choreographed that routine was, he showed off all the different footwork, all the different throws. To me, I understand that Trevor Lawrence is going to be the first pick. There's no question about it. But after that, if you're looking for a quarterback, you're telling me you're going to go Zach Wilson or Trey Lance before Justin Fields? To me, that just doesn't make any sense. Look at that Clemson game last year. It was one of the best games, if not the best game, a Power 5 quarterback played all year against the Clemson team that nobody gave Ohio State a chance to beat, and Fields was unbelievable. That's the guy that you want, the guy who has already played against defenses that were full of future NFL players. Lawrence will be the first quarterback taken. If I was a scout or a GM who needed a quarterback after Lawrence, I'm taking Justin Fields, and I'm not thinking twice.
Well, and you were there for the pro day at Ohio State. You were on with us right after leaving Columbus, so you saw firsthand. And you've seen a lot of dudes, man. You've been around NFL draft picks, future first-round guys, and he left quite an impression on you, it sounds like.
Yes, he did. And he's really impressive in interviews, too. It's not just the physical ability. He is not a huge rah-rah guy. He became more of a leader his last year at Ohio State because Ryan Day needed him to. But that is developed at the NFL when you're a quarterback. You don't just step in as a rookie and everybody says, you're our leader. You need to prove that you can be a leader. You do it with your play. You do it with the way you handle yourself. Justin Fields will do all those things, not just above average, but exceptionally above average. It'll take a year or two. But I think this is a guy who is going to be a huge benefit to whoever decides to draft him.
Talking NFL Draft, Rick Pizzo, Big Ten Network. Rick, take care. Have a great weekend. We'll do it again soon. Thanks for the time.
That's good. That's always my pleasure, Smitty. Take care.
Good stuff from Rick Pizzo. Let's get you an update with Nebraska baseball. They're up 1-0 in the third, bottom of 3. And Nebraska stranding a golden opportunity. You had a leadoff triple by Jackson Hallmark. He stayed at third in the top of the third. And Nebraska unable to add to their lead. But, this is really all about what Nebraska does this weekend against Penn State. Penn State's a team that's, they're all right. They're Division I, but they're 3-4 games below 500, and they just don't have consistency. And Nebraska's going to have to be locked in on the mound, stay fired up offensively. I mean, they've averaged 6.5 runs the last several outings in Big Ten play. And when you come to the conference race here, Nebraska's right there, and they lead Michigan and Indiana, and you have Ohio State. And right now, Nebraska still has to play Michigan or Indiana. So I think this is a good team. I think there's lots of talent. I don't disagree with any of that. You just want to see them do work against Indiana, do work against Michigan, and take care of business against teams they should take series from.
Yeah, and I don't even think that Nebraska should win this series against Penn State. I think they should sweep this Penn State team. I mean, if you're trying to stay on top of the Big Ten, this is a team that you got to just put into the dirt. I mean, if you want a symbol of how much Penn State cares about their baseball program and how much they actually care about it, just go look at the video feed that they're putting out on BTN+. If you go to the Huskers baseball Twitter page, go look at the highlights they're posting, because that's directly
very grainy. That's
directly from Penn State. I don't think there's any commentators on there. And the video feed looks straight out of 2005. Like, it's bad. It's a bad video feed. This is a guy who's coming from a guy who's worked for the Nebraska video department. That's terrible. That's minimum effort. That camera that they're having on the game. They just flipped
the switch on.
That looks like somebody turned on their webcam on their laptop and just put it on the field. It is absolutely awful. And you can't take a video feed to say how good a baseball team is, but that's awful.
One thing about Nebraska, though, is the buy-in. And Will Bolt talked about that this week here, how he had talent when he got here, but it's all really kind of come together a little bit from Will Bolt here this week.
Again, I'll always just continue to point to the upperclassmen on this team and just the character of the guys that were already here, the talent that was already here. Again, we're asking them to play a little bit of a different style of baseball. But again, they're just all high character young men, and they were just welcomed us with open arms, and we're open-minded to learn and to, we came into this situation. I didn't recruit these upperclassmen, but I knew a lot about them just having followed the program. So knowing what skill sets they had, what they could bring to the table, these guys have just been tremendous to coach. From that aspect, the older guys, because they've really bought in quickly, and when your older guys buy in, that just kind of trickles down to the rest of the roster and the rest of the team, and that's what those guys have brought, and it's made the transition pretty seamless.
Here is a bit of a scouting rundown from Will Bolt on Penn State, what Nebraska's facing, again up 1-0 here, bottom of 3.
They've played well at times. They're right there. In that the group of teams that are kind of right in the 500 range. They've swung the bats really well at times. I feel like they've got very experienced starting pitching, guys with good stuff, guys that can navigate through a lineup. They're very experienced that way. I think they've got a couple of really good bullpen arms as well. Pretty veteran lineup, and they try to create some offense. They've got some guys that want to bunt. They got guys up and down the lineup that can run. I do know that, and they're going to try to create a little havoc where with the bunt game, maybe a slash here and there, some hit and runs, and those type of things. So just like everybody else in this league, we've got to show up and play our best if we want to have the results that we want to have this weekend.
Well, 1-0, and I don't disagree with you. It's easier to say than do to sweep. But Nebraska didn't get the sweep last weekend, but took 2 out of 3. Very impressive Sunday, super high level Friday. And I will have to check out the grainy video feed that you are so distraught over. We'll wind down a Friday. Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at HailVarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, weekend edition tomorrow morning. Mark Kranak is back. Myself, Elijah Herbel in, as we'll get the table sent for your open practice Saturday with Nebraska Spring Football 2021. Rewind will be with Nebraska offensive analyst and longtime coach Ron Brown. Today, good stuff from Bill Doleman on the transfer situation. Good to hear from Derek Peterson from Hail Varsity. And you just got caught up with Rick Pizzo. Reminder about moving in 2021. West Blue Realty is who you got to call. They specialize in residential home sales in Lincoln and the surrounding community. They'll make this move a smooth one for you for a limited time. You mentioned Hail Varsity, and West Blue Realty can provide you up to $1,000 on the closing of your next home purchase. Tom Luby and Kelly Hofschneider make it happen with West Blue Realty. Give Tom Luby a call at 402-540-3768 today, or Kelly Hofschneider, 402-202-2312. It pays to work with West Blue Realty. Log on today, westbluerealty.com, and get an appointment with them at 1120 K Street, Suite 200. Now, are you looking at moving some agricultural land? And listen, West Blue Realty can help with that. They have experience in selling ag land. They have an auctioneer. They can handle anything from live auctions to sealed bids to general land listings. They've sold land in Lancaster, Odo, Seward, and counties all across the great state of Nebraska. They've handled a large radius of land. WestBlueRealty.com. What is on the agenda tonight, Elijah Herbel?
Let's see. I got to work in the morning, so probably taking a Benadryl about 7:30 and going to bed early.
So you're going to crash?
I say that now. I'm sure I won't. I'm sure it's just going to be...
You going to go hoop? You going to go grub?
It's the weather is not great for basketball. I do know my dad has some spaghetti, meatballs, and margaritas at his house.
That is a combo.
It's a combo and a half. I'm not sure how he thought of it.
Is it blended or on the rocks? Do you have a preference?
I believe it is blended.
See, that's good.
I'm not sure if he's like actually blending it though, like live. I'm not sure what the he just texted me. He said spaghetti, meatballs, and margaritas at my house if you're hungry. And
Bang.
I'm like, okay, I can do that. So that's probably the dinner plan tonight.
We'll see Papa Bear in a minute. I'm coming too. No, it sucks outside. It's cold. It's rainy. It's wet. Two things happened today. I got my teeth fixed and I got a grill cover. So it was a win.
Good day to get a grill cover.
Right. And any day to get my teeth fixed is a winner. The wife was throwing shade this week about my tobacco consumption, about how my teeth look like picket fence. I'm like, ouch, wow. I don't get in there on your fangs, honey. One of us had braces 3 times in her life, and it wasn't me. But, I got piled on about that. But I was happy. Saw Dr. Goots today. He's phenomenal. And I'm feeling all right. I can smile now and not hear someone go at me. So
yeah, see, with my copious coffee drinking, I've also I just gone on, instead of going in like going to the dentist or whatever and getting the teeth whitening, just I
do the strips.
I do the strips, which they always take it out of my pocketbook. It's just,
they're still like $50.
Oh yeah, but it is something that I feel like necessary.
Gotta do it. All right, check out the podcast. Give us a review. Tell us what you think. Subscribe, good, bad, or ugly. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and ESPNLincoln.com for the on-demand. Talk to you tomorrow morning at 7 on Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.